It's Saturday, 17th of April, 2021. In today's show, we are discussing the Pool's vital win over the Mackems at Bloomfield Road this afternoon, which also stretches our unbeaten run to an incredible 16 games. I'm John Aspinall. This is the Seasiders Podcast Match Reaction Show. Blackpool 1, Sunderland 0.
It's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great traditional
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Seasiders Podcast Match Reaction Show. Blackpool 1, Sunderland 0. And I'm just coming from my deathbed after half recovering from my COVID jab. Tim, you did warn me about it, didn't you?
I tried to, but you were, with the folly of youth. I'll be fine, he says. I'll be fine.
Thursday I had it, and shaking like a shitting dog all night. I wasn't going to come on to this and do it, but I've dragged myself up on the back of that 1-0 win. Matt was going to make his debut in the presenter's chair, so he's going to run this show. So how are you feeling about it, Matt? Matt Smith, by the way, because we've got two Matt.
We have, haven't we? Just to let the listeners and viewers know that about 30 minutes later than John, I had my jab and I've been fine. So obviously my rough and brutal Cumbrian upbringing has served me in good stead. And here I am, fresh as a daisy, 3 gym sessions down and half a bottle of rum and coke at the moment. So it's all good.
You bastard. I felt so bad. I felt like I'd got flu. I think I'd got a coronavirus, but I guess one day of feeling like death is better than touching death in I don't know if you catch the disease anyway, or long COVID anyway. So go and get your jabs, listeners, anyway, if you haven't.
Absolutely. I mean, I did, obviously you said that you might not be here tonight. So I did sort of write up some intro notes, and I thought that it's, I was going to have to introduce the saying, well, it's only taken 10 years to get rid of him due to a bit of a drugs and a needle, but we've finally done it.
Yeah, I should have told me I'd let you do the intro. Steve just said there, Matt. So, Tim, sorry, yes. But let's introduce other Matt J, who we're going to be calling Mitch from now on, just to stop any confusion. Matt, thanks for coming on again from Mitch Cook's Left Foot blog. He made such a sterling debut. We've signed him on a loan deal until the end of the season, pending a contract negotiation in the summer. So welcome.
You should call me Elliot then.
That means you can't play in the next pod.
Yeah.
But we've beaten Sunderland 1-0. And Matt, if you avert your eyes to the screen, Steve Hutchinson said, glad to say Matt was wrong in his predictions. And Tim, you were scathing of Matt, weren't you? Scathing.
Well, ye of little faith. I'm basking in the glory of my slightly more positive predictions as to how we'd get on against Sunderland. I mean, so hopefully he's going to eat humble pie.
I'm glad to be wrong, but it's funny though. It did prompt me to sort of look back at my predictions because we're 5 games in now from when I did those, and my predictions were we'd have 10 points, and we've actually got 11. So that's even better than what I thought. So I think I ended up on 78 points. So if we end up 78, 79, I'll be more than happy. And obviously, like you say, we'll eat humble pie every time we get one wrong, and it's in a positive way. Absolutely no problem.
Mitch, how were your feelings up into this game? What would you have predicted for this if you did do in your own head?
Well, I quite fancied us because we're good against decent teams, to be honest. I mean, I did do some predictions for the third tier, and to be fair, I did predict we'd win every game between when I predicted and the end of the season, so I'm not sure they're the greatest predictions in the world, but I sort of fancied us for this one. So, yeah, but then once it kicked off, I was terrified for 90 minutes, so yeah.
Tim, do you want to just tell the listeners how we enjoyed the game this afternoon?
Yeah, well, we decided in in homage to the relaxation of COVID rules, to watch the game together. So we set up a bar table. I've got some bifolds, so we set a bar table up outside. I think we put it on the podcast group, actually, didn't we? Set up a bar table just outside the bifolding doors, and we were able to watch the match through into my kitchen through there on the screen I've got there. So it got a little bit nippy in the second half, though, didn't it, John? Because as soon as that sun went in, it was freezing.
Yeah, it was great. It was like watching a game abroad, though, wasn't it?
It was good. It brought some good luck, hopefully, didn't it? Because it's been a long winter, and it was good actually just to watch a game with somebody else as well, which was great.
Yeah, novel.
Even though he was shaking like a shitting dog and wasn't drinking.
Good company.
Weird. It's like, can't think of anything worse than drinking when you're feeling like this. It's weird. Yeah. Anyway. Right, let's have a look at this. The starting 11. Matt, let's come to you first. And I'll let you take the flow of the show over from here on in. So away you go.
Yeah, so it's the first time that I can remember that I actually selected the starting 11 correctly. I just thought he was going to do straight swaps, really. I saw Gabriel coming in on Tuesday night as giving Turton a bit of a rest, and I thought with McGeady playing for Sunderland, obviously Turton was probably a bit more sort of aligned to being somebody who could keep him a little bit more, sort of under wraps, if you will. And then it was Mitchell in as a straight swap, wasn't it, for Embleton? So I wasn't surprised that he obviously went with what he did. We're not really blessed with many options, are we? Unfortunately, from a sort of midfield and attacking perspective, I guess it was just a case of whether he was going to maybe play Yates on his own and three sort of midfielders behind him, really. So I wasn't surprised that was the starting 11. Happy to see it sort of come to fruition. My sort of prediction, I guess, really.
Tim, did you listen to the FNP Friday Night Preview show last night? Because you look what John Scott's saying there. Remind me now who said drop Garbett last night. Because I remember it was Sean. He said drop Garbett for husband.
See, I might have changed things a little bit. To be honest, I started listening to it, and then I was being ordered around the house to do some jobs, so my connection kept on cutting out. So I've ended up only listening to half of it. But it's been very good, to be fair. I'm going to listen to the rest later because the chat from Sunderland they had on was worth listening to. Yeah. The only change that I thought might happen that didn't was, which I think I mentioned on Tuesday night, was whether he might bring Husband in at left back and then push Garbett up to left mid and then push Kai up into the Embleton role. So that would have been the only alternative. Obviously, I didn't think he'd do it, but I thought that was the only other option he had. I thought that might work. Now, as Matt says, I think most of us probably thought that was the likely starting team, and so it proved to be.
Mitch, over to you on the starting 11. Is there anything else you can add, given the lack of kind of options that we had there?
Not really. I mean, me personally, I would have put Sully in the middle, but I didn't think he was going to do it.
In the number 10? Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
But I realistically didn't think he was going to do it, and it was exactly the team that I thought he'd pick, which is very unusual that you get the Critch team spot on, isn't it? So, yeah, it was what I expected.
Yeah. We've got a coach on with us, actually. The referee is fortunate we'd won. I'll be getting a fine. What a weapon. Coming on to him in a bit. Right, Matt, where you go? Tell us about the game.
Indeed. Right. So, first half action, as it was. I mean, before we start, I'll just say, talking about action, did anybody else have iFollow issues today? Or was it just me? Because it crashed on me about 4 times, I think, today. I
kept getting told I had to log back in, and then I just refresh it, and it didn't work. Yeah. It happened about 4 or 5 times.
And the annoying thing is, of course, it's arguably the biggest game of the season, and he obviously would have probably had 15 or 16,000 in Bloomfield Road today. And you sat at home in your front room or your kitchen or wherever it happens to be, and fucking iFollow's crashing. And you just think, what the fuck is going on? Just get me
game
back
of the
into
season,
the ground, please.
Yeah.
Oh, no, painful. Anyway.
Tim, we were just saying, sorry, Matt, we were just saying, wouldn't it be great today to be in that stadium today? 16,000, I reckon.
It would. I mean, would have probably given them the whole of the East, wouldn't we? You would have thought, which would have made sort of like 5,400, I think that holds there. And then the other three sides would have been us, and it would have been one of the best atmospheres you're ever going to see at Bloomfield Road, isn't it? And so frustrating, but it is what it is. I mean, obviously last year we missed the Sunderland game by one game, didn't we? It was the next game after lockdown started. After I think it was on the Saturday after Tranmere on the Tuesday, wasn't it? And we didn't quite make that one. So I think we're just destined never to actually see us play Sunderland in the flesh, are we?
No, maybe at Wembley. Who knows? We might have a chance then, perhaps.
Maybe.
So, So let's go to Mitch first then. So, first half thoughts or initial sort of how we started. What do you reckon? It was. I thought it was quite a. I don't know. It was almost, you could instantly sell that it was like going to be a lot more open than Tuesday night. Definitely in the first few minutes.
Yeah, I thought we started really well. I thought we were the better side first 7-8 minutes. It was about sort of 10 minutes ish before I kind of noticed Sunderland's quality. I thought Sunderland clearly had some quality on the pitch, but it didn't show in the first 7 or 8 minutes. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember any obvious chances, but I remember us looking likely, sort of quite inventive in the first 10 minutes. And you could argue that opening period was one of our best periods of the game, I think, which is nice to see because, they've not been on the pre-match bongs, to use the podcast term, which is nice to see.
He's learning.
That's right, yeah. Straight in there. Well done, Mitch. So, Tim, what were your other thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought it was a positive start. I think probably what slightly let us down was our final touch during that period. We seemed to do really, really well in the build-up, and then the last ball. I think the first thing I sort of I marked out of note was what a great name Max Power was. Me and John were talking about. I thought he sounded like a superhero, and I think I've got what John said.
A lad's mag.
Yeah. The first thing I noted was great balling from Turton after good work from Yates on the right, and if you remember, it was cleared off the line. I think that was after about 5 minutes. Yeah. And we also had Yates curling one into the goalkeeper's hands from the left-hand channel on 13. But yeah, as Mitch says, I thought it was a positive start. Probably where we were on the front foot. Probably the only time really in the game that we really were. And at that stage, I thought we looked like we were the team most likely, and we showed some quality. I thought Yates in that opening period just looked like he was imperious, wasn't he? He just looked like from an attacker's perspective, like a man really on top of his game, and it was great to see. To think, to actually have one that actually, whether he is the best centre forward in the league or not is debatable, but he's most certainly up there in the top 3 or 4, and it's great to have a player like that in our starting 11 because. It's not often we can say that, is it?
I think he's really, really come into his game. I remember when we played Bristol away, I was watching their lad, I think he's Hanlon, and I was thinking, I wish we had a player like that who could sort of take the piss a bit, for want of a better phrase, who could make his own chances and sort of come deep. And Yates has gone past that. He's really, really come on. We said this last time, didn't we? But yeah.
I think that's the thing with Yates, isn't it? Sorry, Tim. I'll just say, I think that's the thing with Yates. You don't have to just rely on the ball sort of like going through into the box with him. You can pick the ball up, 30, 40 yards out as he did against, let's say, Portsmouth away or to a lesser extent, sort of Northampton at home. And he's just different, isn't he? He's not just his work rate or whatever. He can just bring a different sort of aspect to the game. He's not. I mean, you could see, like, for instance, the difference between him and Charlie White today was massive. Charlie White is literally a guy who, for me, just looks like he thrives on crosses and not a lot else, quite frankly. And it's obviously the service that gets to him that's giving him the 28 goals or whatever he's got this year. Whereas Jerry Yates doesn't necessarily have to rely on, good crosses from the left and the right. He can do his own thing, can't he? He's very, very different. And I think a lot of this, I guess this is why a lot of rumours will happen with him in the summer, I'm sure, is because a lot of teams will look at him and think, actually, he can provide different things rather than just being, a 6-yard sort of goal scorer, Nice comment, by the way.
Max Power's Irish colour, cousin Sillet Bang.
No, what I was going to say was just that, when you watch the Champions League in a midweek, and there's certain players, isn't there, out there, like Messi and Ronaldo, who, even when they're not on top of the game, always look more assured than everybody else on the pitch. And on a Division 1, League 1 equivalent, that's where Yates is for me at the moment. When he's on the pitch, you look at him and think he is better than this league, just as they are, some of the best players in the world. He is one of the best players in League 1, whichever way you look at it, and he knows it, not in a big-headed way, but he knows it that he can do it, and he's most certainly not. He doesn't come across particularly as a big-headed player. He comes across as a hard worker, somebody who plays for the team, but his skill level's gone through the stratosphere for me, and I think that's confidence.
And what's so nice is he didn't look like that at the outset. He looked hardworking. He looked, he looked likable and hardworking. But this is it's nice seeing a player develop. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you guys. I thought we started off pretty brightly. I thought that if I was Grant Ward and Kenny Dougal today in the first 15 or 20 minutes, especially, I'd be like, oh, thank God we're not up against an Accrington type of situation. It gives us a little bit more time on the ball and able to do one or two things. And I just thought in that 15 minutes where we were most definitely the better side, started pretty well. It was just sort of like the final ball, wasn't it, that we were just missing, really. Although we did, like you say, Turton put a great ball in, and I think there was possibly one or two sort of half chances. But it was, I seem to remember a couple of attempted through balls by Kai and one or two other players that just didn't quite come off. And had we have got an early goal, it could have been, it could have been so much more sort of, I don't know, not necessarily an entertaining game, because it was entertaining, but it could have even been more open, I guess, really, because Sunderland would have had to come out even more. But I thought we were definitely the best side for, like I say, 15 or 20 minutes. And then, I don't know about you guys, then it sort of, we sort of just, I don't know, did we run out of ideas, anybody?
I think one thing that I noticed in that first period, and was probably one of the few negatives that you'd pick up from the way we're playing, was our set plays were poor. I think some of the guys on the chat were calling for Garbutt to be relieved of duties on corner. Not that we had corners, we only had one, I think, all game, didn't we? But most certainly, I thought we were wasteful on free kicks. And
I think the words they were using was "Garbutt is wank" at set pieces, number one.
Yes, I think I can guess who said that as well, can't you? But yeah, I think I don't know whether it's that we ran out of ideas. I just think it's that Sunderland. Look, listen. At the end of the day, Sunderland have got some very, very good players. Ledbetter and McGreedy and O'Brien. They I think we came out of the traps better than them, and they weathered the sort of Blackpool storm for the first 15, but then started to come into it themselves. They've got one of the best squads in the division at the end of the day. Whether they're always performing is another matter, but they've got the quality most certainly. And I think what we saw, I think they picked up a yellow card quite early on, didn't they? And Chizzy managed to get the player wrong again. But there was a ball played through, and Mitchell had gone on the right. He was nowhere near the ball, and one of their players basically body checked him or whatever he did, and ended up picking up a yellow. And I think a feature of the game was that there was a number of occasions where I think they were quite, as we're going to talk, they were quite lucky that they didn't end up with less than 11 men on the field at the end of the day. And there's quite a few also other situations where fouls weren't given. So I think they were dirty. They were whether it's dirty or whether it's just more professional than us, I don't know. But they didn't mind breaking play up by taking one for the team, did they? By any stretch of the imagination.
No, and I think that's where maybe someone like Grad Ledbetter, he's 34, 35 years old. He's been around the block a few times, and he brings that sort of experience, doesn't he? I thought he played really well for them today. the one that was sort of pulling the strings in their sort of midfield, and he was, like you say, he was the one amongst others. He was sort of breaking any sort of flow that we were trying to get through, really. So, I mean, you mentioned before, Tim, that they've got sort of a quality squad. I'll just bring Mitch in on this one. So, after 21 minutes, McGeady, who is outstanding, I think he's a great player, and if he was 5 years younger, he'd still be playing in the goodness knows, could even be playing in the Premier League, but certainly Championship level. And he put over a fantastic ball to Jones, I think it was. Yeah. And he just sort of failed to control it, didn't it? It sort of ended up in Maxwell's midriff. I don't know whether it was a foot-in by Garbett, but he's a quality player, isn't he?
I think that was the best bit of football I've seen all. Yeah, sorry, I think that was the best bit of football I've seen all season from anyone. It was just beautiful, and what it made me think was that he is the player that we don't have. There's some really good comments about. There was a comment that came up before about what does it say about us that I'm more anxious about playing Rochdale than I'm Sunderland, and I think we all feel that, and it's that sort of player we don't have. We don't have that absolute magician like him, and it was just going nowhere, wasn't he? He was just sort of. I was watching him. He just sort of pottering around in the centre circle. I thought, he's going to lose it, and then he just lifted it, and I thought Jones just sort of. He just couldn't quite get it on. And again, I thought Maxwell played very well today. He was right on that. He read that beautifully because it was so quick. And I thought Maxwell read it really well and smothered it. So yeah, he was quality today.
I think you're right. I mean, that go back to that first 15 minutes briefly. I think if you had a McGeady on our side, I think those 2 or 3 passes that we tried to put through would have probably gone through. But I mean, let's be honest. He's probably way above our wage structure and all the rest of it, isn't he? I
thought the difference today between I was sort of watching Sully and McGeady because I thought Sully was going to be important for us because we were lacking Embleton, and the difference between Sully and McGeady was quantity versus quality. Sully actually got pretty involved, which is something he's often critical for. We often criticise him for, but McGeady was maybe less involved. But when he was involved, his quality was. It was out of this division, I mean, it's not that. Hasn't he played a European final, McGee? He's certainly at CSKA. He's been all over.
Slavia Prague or somewhere.
Yeah. I mean,
Eastern European team.
How he's in League One, I don't know. And how they weren't playing him. They weren't playing him
for a year.
What was that about?
They put him on loan to the Nobbers, didn't they, for a season?
Yeah.
Absolutely madness, isn't it?
I think even when he came back, he didn't play because of. Was it Phil Parkinson, the manager?
Parkinson froze him out, didn't he?
Yeah, fucking ridiculous.
I think the thing is looking at Steve Hutchins' point about him. If you want to put that on the screen again, John. I mean, that's the thing with these sort of players that you don't see them necessarily for 60, 70 minutes sometimes, but it's that flash of sort of brilliance, isn't it, that can make the difference. And in games like today, when it was a low scoring affair, obviously it could, and he possibly. It could have made the difference. Obviously, if Jones had brought that ball down and they'd have gone 1-0 up, then that's all down to McGeady's pass, isn't it? But he's not as busy as he used to be. Obviously, he's going on a few years now, isn't he? But he's still a quality player.
Isn't it depressing that a player of 35 is classed as old? Doesn't it make you feel old, very old yourself? If a 35-year-old footballer is classed as old.
I know. He'd officially get in a vet side now, wouldn't he? On the Stanley Park or whatever.
He could play in our walking football team, Tim.
Come down to walking football.
35 over 35 session.
So that was early on in the first half, 21 minutes when McGeady did that, and then just a few minutes later, then we had our own chance where Ellis Sims was put through and blazed over, didn't he? Basically, so. I think it was it Jerry Yates that put the ball through to him, if I remember rightly?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but I just thought that with his recent goal scoring, I thought he would have. I was out of my seat. I thought he was going to hit the target, and we've said that so many times before this season. And and it ended up in Rosette, didn't it?
As it happens, I don't know if you can see this on here, but does my notes come up? Where is it? Can you see it? Hit the target.
Matt, I remember him writing that. I said, "You know what to write now, Tim," and he went, "Yeah." Wrote that down. That worked beautifully. Like we'd set up or something.
I know. There was a free kick, wasn't there? I think, but the ref played on from it, didn't he, as well? Which I actually thought was. I remember Chizzy was whinging about the fact the ref didn't give the free kick. But to be fair to him, he played the advantage. You know, Sims was clear in the box, and you know, on another day he'd have scored a goal, wouldn't he? So I'd be fuming if the ref had pulled that back when he was in the box and about to pull the trigger. So I thought, you know, I won't be saying that much today, but well played ref there, I thought. You know, Sims really should have hit the target from that position.
Yeah. I mean, we will talk about the ref further, but I thought actually in the first half, he let quite a lot. He wanted to try and get the game flowing, I thought. You know, he was letting a few sort of little niggles go here and there, and he was obviously having words with players. But Mitch, I didn't think he was going to be as, how can I put it, controversial as what he ended up being in the first half. You know?
I wrote the same in the blog, that I actually early on thought, yeah, you know, he pulled obvious foul play back, but 50-50 he seemed to be letting go. And I think the main problem was he bottled the big decisions. It wasn't that he let the game flow. It wasn't sort of any one little moment here and there. Is that he bottled big decisions and largely against them. I mean, you could argue Dougal should have gone later, but you know,
do you not also think
two of them should have gone?
Do you not also think, and it became more apparent as the game went on, that there seemed to be quite a few fouls on Blackpool that he just played on, clear pushes. He was right in front of them as well. And then if we even touched one of theirs, it seemed to give the free kick. There seemed to be almost like a little bit of big team bias going on as the game went on in relation to the free kick giving out. I just felt it seemed very one-sided, shall we say?
Yeah, there was one point where they literally held Sully on the floor when he was trying to get up, and he was just waving him on. And so that's clear. That.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a few contentious issues, so we say, and it was sort of halfway through, maybe even a bit further than halfway through, when Kenny Dougal got the yellow card that we were, you know, it's almost a given, isn't it, really, that he gets a yellow card a game at the moment. He just seemed to be, I don't know, a little bit off with his sort of tackling, really. We commented on Tuesday night about his American football style of tackle that got him a yellow card, and he got another one today. And then, you know, it's such a big part of his game, isn't it, to get stuck in. And when you've got, best part of 65, 70 minutes left to play, he's on a bit of a tightrope, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's 26 minutes and marked it down when he got his yellow. I think on balance it was deserved. He was late on Ledbetter, I think, wasn't it? And
yeah,
but he seems to do one of those every single game, and then has to play, probably, like you say, play slightly within himself, because he is running that tightrope. But yeah, I think I think at least one, if not two of theirs, had already gone into the book. I think one of their guys had gone in. One had gone for that challenge on Mitchell, hadn't he, which was well off the ball, which was very, very cynical. It was the problem with referees when you start dishing cards out like that so early in the game as well, is that you've then got this issue of applying a consistency at a later stage, haven't you? And as it's not too long afterwards, because that Ledbetter was already on a yellow, that we'll find that he has to make a very, very big decision.
Yeah. So my notes for the basically the latter half of the first half was that I just put too many long balls, no second ball winners. And I don't mind us going long. You know, I mean, Ellis Sims and Jerry Yates can compete like the rest of them, but there just seems to be, for me, too many times when the ball was competed for and then it just fell to Grant Ledbetter in midfield. There was no sign of Ward or Dougal or anybody from our midfield that was picking up anything. And for me, that's where sort of Sunderland grew into the game, really. Mitch, I don't know what your thoughts were the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes of the first half.
There was my favourite comic moment of the game in that period where, do you remember Sully went inside and it was his best bit of the game. He went past two and he pinged a ball that nobody had seen. And Turton was free in miles of space and he took it in and then just fell over. And I just thought it was the most Ollie Turton moment I could possibly think of because he'd done everything right and then just fell over. So there was that. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the first 15 minutes we were winning all the second balls. We were stopping them coming out. They didn't look good coming out at all. They were sort of trying to hit us on the break and losing it every time. And then I think they'd gone in response. They'd stopped trying to play out as much and we weren't getting as much there and they'd started pinning us back. And yeah, it was the same thing that we talk about without Medine. We were going long and Sims can win a flick on, but he can't bring it in and hold it up. So we were.
This game was crying out for Gary Medine today.
Yeah.
I think it made a massive difference.
Somebody who was familiar with the dark arts we needed, didn't we? Who could give back what they were giving to us.
Yeah, I think especially with their sort of relatively inexperienced centre half or defensive unit, I think he would have made a difference as well. I mean, I don't know, is he anywhere near the squad at the moment in terms of fitness? Because he just seems to have gone quiet the last week. So.
It's supposed to, it feels like we've had the same update about 3 times, but he's supposed to be back on grass within the next week, but I feel like I've heard that about 3 times. There
was somebody on ABFTT who seems to know a little bit what's going on, who says him and Labala are training together away from the first team. So
maybe
I don't know where that
happened.
If that's, I personally don't think we're going to see him again. Just like we're not going to see Labala again. So, but we won't find out why. We'll be left to speculate, I suspect. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because I think he could have a very, very positive influence in the run-in between now and the end of the season. But I think something's gone on. I just don't think we're going to see him.
I think that needs sorting though. If that's the case though, Tim, if we play like Sunderland in a 2-legged playoff, we need that kind of play.
Well, we haven't got any choice at the moment. If anything happens to Sims or to Yates particularly, we're goosed, aren't we? I mean, Yates is irreplaceable in the team at the best of times. But when there's literally no other recognised centre forward available, what we're going to do then? So listen, I mean, maybe that information on AVFTT was wrong. It didn't seem to be any agenda behind it. We keep hearing he's 80% there, don't we? But there's a niggle of some description that's preventing him from coming back.
If it is a disciplinary thing, just get it sorted, whatever it is.
It's too big an issue now, isn't it? It's too big an issue, and too much money's at stake. The owners put huge sums of money into the team, and getting into the championship. Whilst it brings its own challenges, it does open the purse strings quite significantly in relation to what's available to the owners. And we can't, he is one of the best strikers in that division. And to have him kicking his heels on the sideline, if he's fit, would be an absolute travesty at this time of the season. Whatever's gone on, get a bit of workplace mediation in there, whatever it takes, but get it sorted and let's give ourselves the best chance of getting up this year.
The other thing, though, I mean, I know what's been said about Medine. The other thing Critch did say in the Gazette, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, he said he made a point of picking out Medine, saying, he's a really good influence in the dressing room and sort of saying positive things about him. And it just seems odd that, it seems odd if they're going to the length of almost creating a cover up for it. I mean, Bez has just disappeared. I could believe whatever with Bez because he's just disappeared, and they've said sort of he's not he's not in the mix. He's gone. It's tactical. Don't ask any more questions. But with Medine, they're open. And the thing about Medine is that I think is important that he can play with Yates or Sims. And actually, I think Medine and Sims would be an okay forward line. And I think at some point, Jerry's got to get a break. If we're going into the playoffs, if we can put a couple of wins together and cement ourselves in the playoffs and automatics out, then I'd really want to give Jerry a game off, because I think he just needs to be sharp, and he has run miles in the last couple of months, miles and miles and miles.
It'll certainly be interesting, won't it, with, let's say, 3 games to go, if we're pretty much secured at a playoff place, whether the likes of Brad Holmes and Rob Apter and maybe Medine, if he's somewhere near fit, get a bit of a run out to give Yates a much needed rest. But obviously at the moment it's just a matter of getting into those playoffs, isn't it? And
I think the only way Holmes is going to get on to get it to. And we need it. I think I agree with you. We need him to get a few minutes under his belt in case we need him. But it will be Critch will want either as ordered to be guaranteed playoffs, or he'll want a 2 or 3-0 cushion. I think he was close to coming on. I think he'd have come on at Lincoln if we'd scored that third, and I think Yates would have been pulled and rested. And let's hope we one game in the. It's not going to be Sunderland, is it? So. Whether it can be Rochdale, who are obviously fighting for their lives, or whether it can be Shrewsbury, whoever it is, if we get that cushion, I think you'll see Yates hooked and Holmes on the pitch.
Yeah, I think the same goes for a couple of players as well, because obviously Grant Ward and Kenny Dougal have put the shift in over the last few weeks as well. So, I mean, yeah, there's 1 or 2 players I'm sure would benefit from a little bit of a rest, if not, just to keep fresh, really. And equally, the flip side of that is, Mitchell went down with cramp, didn't he, in the second half today? So it's players who need game time adversely, isn't it? So it's finding that balance, isn't it? It's finding that balance. So the end of the first half, the only other thing I've sort of written down was that Ledbetter, who we mentioned earlier, was booked for a cynical foul on Demi Mitchell following a bit of it was a crap corner by Sunderland, wasn't it, that we sort of broke away at, and then he brought him down just before the halfway line, and he was given a yellow card. And the only other thing I actually wrote was that apart from that Jerry Yates sort of cross-come shot, for want of a better expression, there was no other really sort of saves of any sort of note from either keeper. So I don't know whether anybody had any thoughts at half-time about any potential changes. Mitch, were you happy with just going in with the same 11 for the second half?
Yeah, I was basically.
Formation and personnel.
Yeah, I think what we've got on the bench, what we had on the bench, I wasn't crying out for it to go. If we'd got Hamilton and Medine and these players, then I might have been mixing it up. But with what we had, no, I think I would have just gone same again. I thought we'd given a decent account of ourselves.
Yeah,
I think the other thing I noticed before half time was I think there was a fantastic challenge from Gretterson.
Oh yeah,
on 42 minutes, and I mean, more so in the second half than the first half. He put his body on the line, didn't he, and ultimately paid the price for it. But he and Ballard in that first half, particularly, as the game wore on and they were coming at us, were not to be moved, were they? They were like pillars in that defence, and it's great to see. I mean, Arsenal are the big beneficiaries of this, aren't they? Because Ballard is learning his craft with us, and he's just got to. It's a little bit like Dewsbury Hall. He's just got to improve and improve and improve. And I think we've just got to make the most of us having him while he's here, because I think he'll be a Premier League centre back before too long.
What really impressed me about Ballard today was actually a couple of times the first 10 minutes, White beat him, and I thought, oh, hang on, White's got the measure of him, and he adjusted and he played him differently, and he sort of, I'm making it sound like I'm an expert in playing centre back, but he just adjusted the way he was, and that's the mark of a quality player, is if you can get beaten a couple of times and then not again in the same game. You've got brain as well as your physical ability, which for
our best chance of keeping him in the short term is if we do get promoted, because I think a little bit like with Dewsbury Hall, I think Arsenal want him in the Championship next year, and if we are able to get up, I think there's a good chance of getting him on a season-long loan, and it would be great for him and fantastic for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is Arsenal have obviously let him come to us probably because of Neil Critchley's sort of ability to coach younger players in the first place. And they obviously know, and you can see that he's only, 19 or 20, and he seems to be just such a quick learner, doesn't he? And he's like you say, Tim, he's going to be a quality player. And I think if Arsenal do put him in the side next year, from what I've seen of Arsenal on the box this year, they'll certainly do no worse than putting Dan Ballard in. That's for sure. I think
he's 21.
In addition, 21 is he? Well, there you go. You know, he's a quality player, and I think he's going to be a very, very good.
But this is what players of this age, of that age, a Premier League player should not be rattling around in under 23 squad. They should be out on loan in the Div 2, Div 1, and then the Championship, because that's how they'll learn how to play football. And we get the benefit of seeing these players play for our clubs as well, don't we? You know, I mean, players aren't always here for much longer than a couple of years anyway. So if you can get a really, really good player on a season-long loan, you know, as we've seen in the past with Seamus Coleman and players of that ilk, with John Joe Shelvey, it's great to have them while they're here, but you just know you're not going to keep them forever. But you don't keep a good player forever anyway. If they're that good,
no,
they end up being sold and moving up anyway. So up to the Premier League or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. So let's get promoted and keep him signed on for next year. That's the ideal, isn't it? Really. So into the second half then, and I put that it was sort of a quiet start to the second half, really.
Just look at that comment, Matt. Just read that.
Just read that out. So Dan BFC's put, Ballard has got the face of a choir boy and the body of a transit van. Puts his shift in.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I like that. He does look so innocent, doesn't he? But he's hard as nails, isn't he? He really is. Yeah, proper workhorse as well. Yeah, tremendous that. So a quietish start to the second half. And the first thing I wrote down in my notes, I think it was 53 minutes, that we broke away with Jerry Yates. And I think we had a 3-on-2 or maybe a 3-on-3, certainly. And of all the players to pick out on the wrong side of the pitch,
what was he doing there?
What was he doing there was Ollie Turton. So, yeah,
fair play to him for getting there, though.
Yeah.
He certainly is Mr. Versatile.
Yeah,
taking it to the nth degree by doing that.
I think Sunderland had a corner. Sunderland had a corner which we cleared, and it dropped to Yates, who basically powers into their half and created a decent amount of space for himself. I think he had Mitchell on the right, who I don't think he saw, and then rather bizarrely, you had Ollie Turton, that well-known left winger, steaming down the left. And Yates passed to him, and I just wrote "wrong man!" ! I
thought, who is it?
Yeah,
I couldn't tell who it was. Who is it? Who is it? Oh, it's Turton.
Yeah.
Well, hey, why was he so advanced? Why was he so advanced on the opposite flank?
I guess that when we set up at corners, he must mark the near post on the left-hand side, as it were.
Right.
And he just ran 80 yards in a straight line and unfortunately got picked out. But I was like Tim, I wrote down right place, wrong player, unfortunately. But it was a shame that because if it was another attacking type of player, I'm sure would have benefited it a little bit more. But anyway, it was only a few minutes later when we were on the defensive side of things, and I think this was possibly his only little blemish on what was an otherwise excellent game for him. And Dan Ballard sort of mistimed a header, and it fell to Aidan McGeady, who was one-on-one with Turton and got his dancing feet out. And I thought he was in, guys. Mitch, what do you think, mate?
It was in. It was in, and I thought it's in. Oh, it's in the post. No, it's rolling in. No, and it was horrible. There's quite a few times when players do that little step over thing, but he was just another level. And I felt for Turton because many moons ago when I was at school, I used to play at the back, and the basic thing is you stand off, you wait to make the challenge, you don't dive in. And you could see Turton, he was standing off, and then McGeady just, the lack of backlift on the shot, how it just little dink, right? It was beautiful. And we got away with that.
He was standing off too far away. You do stand off. You get taught to jockey, don't you? But he was standing off, but giving him too much space at the same time. And the player like McGeady, you just don't do that, do you?
But I think with almost any other player in the division,
He got away with that.
As to get
he's
that
marking
shot
incorrectly for anyone apart from McGeady.
To get that shot away, virtually any other player would have had to take that extra half a second, and then that's where Turton goes in. But there was so little backlift; it was so clever, that shot, and he just looked like he didn't even know what happened to him, And what do we always say about Turton? You say he's a solid League One fullback who won't let you down. And what have we said about McGeady? That he's actually at very least a Championship player. And in that moment, that was what happened.
Yeah, I mean,
a player from a higher level was up against. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, no, sorry, it was my fault because you just sort of cut out, and I thought you'd finish, mate. Sorry. Tim, we mentioned earlier about the quality of somebody like McGeady. You don't have to be involved in the game for 90 minutes, but in that split second, as it was in the first half, when he put that pass through to Jones, that's why he's paid the money that he obviously is. He's just a quality player, and another day would have been 1-0 down.
Yeah, I think we all thought when that shot was hit, I think we all thought it was in. I mean, actually, Sam was sat behind that goal on the right-hand side of the goal that the ball was curled round, and he said he was right behind the goal and he thought it was going in. So we have to thank the post, and thankfully, as it came out, it didn't quite drop to them. And then there was a foul on our defender, wasn't there, in the immediate aftermath, which I think we were all quite relieved about. But it's and that's what quality players do. They can, when a game's finally balanced, they can make the difference. And very, very McGeady was very close to doing that. And it was a pivotal moment in the game, wasn't it? Because on that type of probably not even half an inch, probably a few millimeters to the left, and that was in, and it would have been a completely different game as it was. It was flipped on its head very quickly.
It wasn't 60, 120 seconds later, there or thereabouts, we go up the other end, and somehow the ball ended up in the back of the net. Mitch, what were your sort of notes and comments on? Was it a Garbutt goal or was it an own goal? Or what?
I was going to say, it was the first thing I was going to say. I still don't know who scored it, but it was a funny one because there was a flick from Sims. There was long ball and there was a flick from Sims, and I can't remember if a Sunderland player had it or if it just dropped. And then everybody just seemed to pause for a moment, and Sully went first and took it into the corner, just dropped it back for Garbutt, and he hit it. And I didn't think he hit it all that well, and it just sort of. Then it went in. I wasn't thinking.
Was it a cross? Was it a shot? What was it?
I don't know. I wasn't. It wasn't one of those where I was thinking as soon as it left his foot, goal. But and then it just went in, and I sort of jumped up. Then it's a massive error from their keeper, isn't it? Let's be fair.
Do you know that challenge when you mentioned when Sims had it? When you watch that back, as we'll be able to later on tonight on Quest, or whatever, I'm convinced it actually comes off the Sunderland defender. So they've both gone for the challenge, and it seems like come off the back of the Sunderland defender's leg, then goes to Kaikai. Obviously, Kaikai lays it back to Garbutt, and Garbutt then does what Garbutt does in that area of the pitch, that just a little bit coming off that left-hand corner of the penalty area. He seems to be very adept at getting decent shots off from that type of distance. I personally think Sims gets the last touch, albeit it might have gone through the keeper's legs in the process, but... I think it's credited to Garbutt, Tim.
It's credited to Garbutt.
And it's still credited to him, is it?
Yep.
So Sims must not have touched it then. It looked to me like Sims touched it.
He didn't react as if he touched it. I mean, I don't want to echo Chizzy, but that's what... Well, actually, it was Brett said that if you look at a striker, if a striker's touched it, and when you watch the replay, sort of Sims looked as baffled as anybody afterwards scored. So I'm not sure if he did or not. But
yeah, I mean, any striker... Right, I think. Any striker worth the salt is always greedy enough to put their hand up.
You're claiming it, aren't you? If it's touched any part of your body, you're claiming it.
Yeah, I was in the area, so that's close enough, isn't it? So it was just for me. It was. I thought it was an own goal, but I didn't care. Obviously, it just went in the back.
I think it's that stroke of luck that we need, Matt.
Yeah, it was. That's exactly it. It was just a bit sort of like almost. It was like I was a bit of underwhelmed with the goal, but relieved at the same time. It was a bit bizarre, really, because obviously if I would have been in the North Stand today, normal sort of circumstances, and you know, obviously would have had a better view of it and all the rest of it. But it was just, for me, it was like, we're not playing 100% of where we possibly could be. And it was just all about timing. I thought it was just at the right time, because Sunderland, again, were just sort of growing into the second half a little bit. And like a few of the lads have said on the chat there, if it comes in off an ex-nobber, then all the better, really. So it's happy days. Happy days.
Double.
Yeah, so that obviously... yeah, absolutely. So that obviously put us 1-0 up. And then the next talking point, which could be a long one, is 63 minutes, and Mitch had the ball on the right-hand side. And it was brought down just outside the area by McFadzean, I think is how you pronounce it. It was just a second yellow all day long. Absolutely stonewaller. And how and why, what the referee was thinking. There was a linesman 10 yards away from it as well. He didn't seem to want to refer to him. And there was players surrounding the referee, knew what was going to happen. They were going to send him off. They just wanted to sort of, I guess, sort of reiterate the point to him, really, that it was his second bookable offence. And he didn't do anything.
Well, Sam actually, it was quite interesting, because not long afterwards, there was an instance at the other end, and there was a bit of I forgot what caused it, but there was a gap in play. I think it was when Gretterson went down for the first time, and Sam's behind that goal, and you can see Maxwell speaking to the ref. And apparently, if I can remember what Sam said correctly, because he texted it in the group, didn't he? He said the ref's telling Maxwell the reason he didn't send him off was because he wasn't going to get the ball when he went past. And I thought the only reason he didn't get the ball was because he was hacked down. I mean,
what's that got to do with it anyway, whether he gets the ball or not?
I know if it's a yellow, but that will be a straight red. But he was on a second yellow card, so the ref, it was a bottle job. He didn't want to send him off, and effectively that's why he doesn't get a yellow. If that was, I think, to be fair to Chiz, he said the same thing. He said if that was his first offence, it'd be yellow all day long, wouldn't it? All day long, yeah. And that could have been very, very detrimental to, you know, if we ended up drawing or losing today, we'd be rather cheesed off about that, wouldn't we? Because they should have been down to 10, and as we saw it,
straight away, didn't he?
They yanked him straight away, so he wasn't put in that situation again. And
the replacement left back nearly scored or nearly set up a goal for them.
Yeah, and that would have been a travesty, wouldn't it, if that had happened? So yeah, I mean, to me, it's unforgivable. That, I mean, it was the clearest yellow card of the day. And there shouldn't have been any doubt in the ref's mind as to what should happen there. And it's just wrong. You know, there's no justification for it. But that was the justification he was giving, that he didn't think, as I understood it, that Mitchell was going to get the ball. But that's just nonsense.
It's just wrong, Mitch. So anything to add?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything. It was an appalling decision. And the only way I could sort of put myself in the ref's head and try and work out what he was thinking was, it was within the sort of 3 or 4 minutes beforehand, Dougal had clipped somebody in the middle, and I just got, because he was on a yellow, and he'd given Dougal a bit of a talking to and gone, right, that's your last one or whatever. But there was no comparison between the two fouls. That was what I could sort of see. He'd let Dougal go, but it was a completely different foul. Dougal's was just one in the course of play. It was one that, you know, a finicky ref might have given him a booking for. But that were any ref anywhere at any level of football would have booked that player for that. And you could argue Mitchell was about to go in the box. He could bring in goal scoring shots. It was a terrible decision.
Yeah, I would love to know how these assessors go through. I'm assuming it's like a football team in a way, isn't it? And the assessor, presumably through these sort of mediums these days on Zoom or whatever, will go through a game with a referee and say, why didn't you give a yellow card? And what his explanation would be.
We should send the video of that. We should send the video of that to this panel of assessors. Say, you know. Yeah,
it was just, I don't know, it was just abysmal. And the thing is, just going on to the rest of the next few minutes, really. Maxwell drops a ball and Ballard clears it off the line, and then Gretterson goes off injured. And with that, what should have been a sending off, I just thought, we're either riding our luck incredibly at the moment, or things are just starting to sort of transpire against us. And it was a very fine line, really, between how we were going to end up, finishing this game either in a positive fashion or worse. And I suppose the referee's probably going to sleep a little bit easier tonight, knowing that we've got the 3 points, which arguably we deserved. But if he did not, if that left back had come on and set the goal up to equalise, and goodness knows what had happened after that. I don't know. These referees, and they just seem to get worse and worse for me. They really do. They really. If
we were playing at I was going to say Roker then at Stadium of Light, he'd be what you call a homer, wouldn't he? He was a homer
definitely.
ref. But to be honest, all through the game, I don't think we got the rub of the green off him. As I said before, I think there was a number of fouls on our players that would just play on, and then it seemed we just needed to touch one of theirs with a feather, and it was a free kick. And was it? We were laughing, weren't we, beforehand, John? Is it this Ben Toner? It was the ref, wasn't it? And I think it's this one that was. It was this one that was. I think it was the Arsenal game in the FA Cup. He was pulled because they were concerned that Blackpool fans would take to social media and play on his name in relation to everything that was going on with the Oystons at the time, if I remember rightly. But he was most certainly yanked from a game for Blackpool for no other reason than he was called Ben Toner.
So Tom Neal, can we have any clever play on names there? We didn't yield any free kicks thanks to Tom Neal, maybe.
Yeah, that's about as good as it gets, really, I think.
Hang on a minute.
Fair play for you to get that one out, really. Yeah, I can only think of congealed that refs. Well, there we go.
I'm not even trying.
No. So that was about halfway through the second half when that incident happened. And obviously Gretterson, who was, a cross between a centre half and I think Chizzy called him a Cumbrian wrestler or something. He reverted to some sort of wrestling at some point. He got battered all game, hadn't he? And it seems as though he's got a dislocated shoulder. And I don't know whether that was because of maybe Charlie White flattening him or whether it was earlier on when
I'll take your pick.
Chris Maxwell. Chris Maxwell flattened him as well. And, it's just it's an occupational hazard, isn't it, really, when you've got a goalkeeper coming out for crosses like that. And it was just a shame that partnership was broken up. But Tim, I mean, Thornley came on and you really didn't notice much difference, did you?
I think I used to be a fan of Thornley, but then when we made the decision to bring him on, I thought, are we going to see a mistake? But to be fair to him, I think he got a decent header in with his first touch. I mean, when you come on as substitute, you always want to get your first touch wants to be a good one, doesn't it? That's what you want to get yourself in the game because you're trying to get into the flow. And I think to be fair, I think he did really, really well. And probably because he's slightly more physical, and I think it was the right call, and he did a great job. But Gretterson, he's turning into a huge player for us, and I just hope dislocated shoulders. All I say is just pop it back in and get back on the pitch. So hopefully, I don't think he'll play on Tuesday night, and whether he'll be available for Sunderland, I don't know. But I suspect it might be more like a couple of weeks before he's able to play again. But God, he went through the mill today, didn't he? I mean,
he does every week. Have you ever seen a player that gets battered so much week in, week out? It was him that went through the running track at Oxford. He seems to get an elbow. I genuinely, I was trying to think this today. I can't think of a player in all the time I've watched Blackpool football in general that just gets beaten up so much.
I mean, he's not the biggest of centre halves, is he? No. So he's always sort of going to be up against it from a physical perspective. But I guess that's literally sort of putting his body on the line all the time, isn't it? Really, and hopefully it will be a case of popping it back in and a lot of painkillers perhaps to ease that, and he'll make a bit more of a better fist of it than John has today, perhaps. Who knows?
12 paracetamols. I know how many I've had. I've had about 14 over the past day and a bit. Really something a bit stronger.
You'll be rattling.
You must be coming round by now, surely.
I'm not too bad. Still a bit jaded, but
bit of man flu. That's all it is.
Exactly. So, so the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes of the second half, whilst I was sort of watching a little bit through my fingers, because Sunderland were obviously putting a bit of pressure on, and obviously we've had, it seems like so many last-minute goals conceded against us. I still thought we were actually pretty much, in control as much as we could be. We were definitely dropping deeper and deeper all the time, and it was getting a little bit sort of scare 'em a bit. But I don't really recall anything that Sunderland had, to be honest.
They had that chance by Wake, didn't they? Where this cross comes in and he has a glancing header that, to be fair, Maxwell got down really well to it and held it. That was about 76 minutes. So I've noted that one down. And it was unchallenged, which was a bit concerning. But
what about that chance when Maxwell fumbled it and Ballard got a last-minute block in? What minute was that in?
Oh,
that was before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what he did do. He did like a scoop save, didn't he? Do you remember that one?
Oh, that was.
Well, there's a Scanlon one. There's a Scanlon one where he's hit it through a crack. To be fair, crowded box of players, wasn't it? And he drilled it low. A great shot, to be fair. And I thought Maxwell did a decent job of dealing with that. But there was most certainly more goal. There was more requirement for Maxwell to take an active role in the second half than the first half. Because the first half, I don't think either keeper really had much to do. But he's. I mean, whatever you say about Maxwell, he's. I think we only let about 11 in the last 20 games, and he's a large part of that. And it's not just his goalkeeping in itself, but it's the way that he's able to act as that last line of defence for us and act as a sort of semi-sweeper. Really impressed.
So just not, was it Bison's just put in the comments just earlier? They've not scored since January. Right. So they've scored in every game. So we kept them out that way. Sorry, Mitch. Away you go. Yeah, that's
impressive. I've just done something really sad, and I've read a book on the history of goalkeeping, and they were talking about the early keepers who were the first to come off the line and start playing as the sweeper, and how much that improved their teams, and how much that gave their teams an edge in whenever it was, the 20s, 30s, whenever it was, when they stopped being glued to the line. And I was thinking of Maxwell as I was reading about, I can't remember what his name was, some keeper at about 1926, and it was kind of the description was, he's so alert, he reads things so well, he's almost like having an extra defender. And there was a few times today where there were chances where he was lightning out and he just shut them out. And another kid, I remember when we go back to the beginning of the season, there was the Anik versus Maxwell debate, and I liked Jack Anik. I thought he was a cracking keeper, but I think over time Maxwell has just become so integral to that defence.
The issue with Maxwell is because I know a solicitor in Blackpool who's a Preston fan, and he just said Maxwell was just so inconsistent. And I think had he gone up to Carl, where had he gone to play? He'd gone to play somewhere. I'm sure it's north of us. It might have been Barrow or Carlisle, somewhere like that. And they said the same thing there. He wasn't consistent, but he's like Mr. Consistency for us, isn't he? He's probably the most reliable keeper I can think of since Gilts, and that's a fantastic thing to be able to say about a keeper, because we've had our share of ones who are far from reliable, haven't we, over the years? And even with the best one in the world, a decent keeper will drop a few clangers. And to be fair to Maxwell this season, you think back, how you're counting on one hand the mistakes he's made, I think.
It was Hibs he went to.
Hibs, that was it. Sorry, yeah, I knew it was north of us. I thought it was in England, though.
Definitely north. Yeah, I mean, he is. I guess every keeper's fallible, aren't they? They always make the odd clanger here and there, and he just seems to have the rub of the green when he does it at the moment. He dropped one today, didn't he? When like I mentioned earlier, when Ballard cleared it off the line. But ordinarily, for me, I feel really confident with him all the time. You know, when balls are put in, crosses, high balls, particularly because he's not 6'5" type of keeper. I mean, what is he? I bet he's only 6 foot, 6'1", isn't he? Which is fairly average.
Matt, when was the last time we had a keeper that you were comfortable when crosses were coming in? It's a long time.
It
wasn't good at crosses.
No, I mean, you know, you're going back to Gilks, like Tim mentioned, really. But Gilks was similar size, wasn't he? He wasn't a massive keeper by any stretch of the imagination. But, you know, as long as they've got the agility and Mitch mentioned earlier, the speed to come out and do the sweeper keeper sort of thing, he's so much of an asset to us currently. It's unbelievable. But
I remember watching him in the ground. I can't remember because he only played a few games, didn't he, before we went into lockdown? I remember watching him in the ground, and he was really edgy all the time. It was like he was really, really tuned into the game. And at the time, I thought, because obviously, you know, Preston fans had said he's a bit of a liability, and I'd maybe misread that as him being sort of, what's the word, a bit temperamental. But I think the more I've watched him, the more I've seen how he is absolutely in tune with the play all the way through, if that makes sense.
Right, a little bit of a Schmeichel in that, not as imposing in the goal, but he dominated what was going on in that defence, didn't he? And whilst we're not there, for what Sam tells me, that all you can hear all game is Maxwell bellowing orders out, and you can just imagine the way Schmeichel was with his defence at Man United. And I think that obviously the lads at the back, particularly the young lads, will have a lot of respect for him because obviously he's a bit more experienced. And I've never been a fan of having a keeper as a captain, and I'm still not really. But you know, he seems to be doing a good fist of it, to be fair to him, and a good keeper who communicates well with his defence is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we sort of get to the conclusion of the game, there was let's have a look. Dimmy Mitchell was substitute for Gabriel, and then we had 7 minutes of injury time. And for me, fortunately for us, I guess, not a lot happened in that injury time other than our own couple of substitutions, Husband and Robson coming on for Kai and Sims. But again, it was a case of Sunderland not really sort of pressurising us massively, really, at least not creating clear-cut chances.
I think my abiding memory, because obviously there was 7 minute stoppages, wasn't there? And John will testify that I couldn't sit still. And he was
pacing around the garden.
Pacing around the garden, because it actually meant a lot, this game. I think this was the game. This was a pivotal game that probably defines. We definitely. I don't want to jinx us, but you know, it's a big one, isn't it? It's a big one because if we win this 3 points, which we ultimately do, we're 5 points clear of 7th. Probably our goal difference probably makes it 6. I've not checked that, but I was pacing. I couldn't sit and watch the game. I had to keep, because I could sit. This clock just was so slow, going down and down and down, and it's great to feel that way, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, we said it's similar to the feeling at the playoff final at Wembley 2010 when that clock was just going like that.
Yeah, and I thought if I go and walk around the garden, there'd be another 30 seconds gone. John's trying to talk to me, and I'm not listening. I'm like, I was trying
to change the subject to him about. I said, "Have you read any good books lately, Tim?" Trying to get his mind off it, and he started going on about a book. so it did work.
Oh dear. So I mean,
you're right though, Matt. Though we didn't really have any big scares, did we?
Not really. And my sort of overriding sort of thought of the day, if I give it sort of like a conclusion to it, was that it was like, I mean, I used to play quite a lot of cricket, and you know, when you edge a ball and it goes through the slips for 4, all it says in the scoreboard is 4. Nobody cares how you scored the runs or anything like that. It just happens that you got 4 runs. And to me, I don't care how we played today, whether we had 30% possession and all the rest of it. We got 3 points today, and that is absolutely massive in the circumstances.
The way I looked at it was we should have beaten Lincoln about 6-2, 6-1. You know, we really, really should have. And so we might have got a bit lucky today, but we earned that luck in the way we played against Lincoln. And, you know, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely. Right, so there we go. So that was.
Should we just have a very quick look at the table? Matt, should we just have a quick look at the table?
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to throw that up. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, table's there. So let's obviously we're nestled in the playoffs. No,
they've got us as drawn as the last game. Can you see?
Oh, is that? Do you need to refresh it or anything?
No, it's BBC.
The points are right. The points are right, though, aren't they?
Points are right.
Oh yeah, points are right. Yeah.
And it's showing Lincoln. It's showing Lincoln. I'm sure they haven't lost and drawn that many, but anyway.
Portsmouth lost, but they've got them down as a draw. Oh, somebody at the BBC's on the right there, haven't they?
I don't think that bit's.
Somebody at Tim's
that bit's
ruined
not been updated, guys. That if you think about it, that bit's not been updated.
Ignore the form bit. Yeah, just ignore
that.
Yeah. So
get it off.
I mean, there you go. That's much better. So going from top to let's just go from the top. So Hull obviously beat near rivals such as they are Fleetwood today. Peterborough won last night, didn't they? Lincoln got an annoyingly good away win, and Portsmouth seemed to be very inconsistent at the moment and lost at MK Dons, which was obviously good from our perspective, and an even better result I thought was Charlton drawing at home to Ipswich, because that's just two, points taking teams off each other, and apparently Oxford are losing at the moment against Gillingham. I'm not sure how long's left. It can't be that long. So if the table stays as it is, then let's have a look. We've got a 5-point cushion, haven't we, on Charlton, and they've got arguably a much tougher run in. I don't know. I'm going to put the mockers on it here, but if we win on Tuesday night, I'll be very surprised if we cock it up from here on in.
It's a nice gap, isn't it?
Oh, it's just I'm being a bit naive here. Are we on goal difference again? It's not goal score; it's goal difference, is it?
Different. I think it's different.
Goal difference.
Well, otherwise you wouldn't have goal difference in there, would you? So obviously our goal difference is massively better than Charlton's. So effectively, as I said before, we've probably got a 6 point. We've actually got a 6 point cushion, haven't we? You would say, bar an absolute catastrophe of losing a couple 3-4 nils or whatever, that would bring it back closer. Yeah. But at the moment, we've got, just for the benefit of the audio, we've got a goal difference of plus 18 and Charlton of plus 6. So. And they're sitting just outside the playoffs on 63 points after 40 games, same as us. So effectively, there's a 6 point gap. And then Oxford, I think this is a live table, isn't it? So if they lose today, they've played 42, so they've played 2 more than us, and they're on 62. So I think, to be honest, you can only perm now. If that stays the same, you can only perm 4 from 5 for me for playoffs. I think the top 2 have got the promotion spots. Yeah. I don't think, we can be as positive as we want to be. And if we win the last 6 games, we end up on 94 points. And I think that might just about do it. But we're not, are we going to win 6 on the trot? I don't think so, are we? Oh, no, sorry. I don't think sorry, not 94, 84 points, isn't it? If we, 86. 86. I don't think 86 is going to get you automatic.
That's why you're a lawyer and not an accountant, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I thought when I said 96, that can't be right. Because I remember we could only get 90 a couple of weeks ago. So
any clients of Tim's firm, check your invoices.
Yeah, check your invoices very carefully. But I think to be fair, I think both Peterborough and Hull will get more than 86 or more, and I don't think we're going to win every game in the running.
No. Yeah, so obviously today's result was huge in terms of just getting us in that almost cushion, isn't it? I guess you could call it, really.
Yeah.
And what we got Rochdale on Tuesday at if it's still called Scotland, I don't know these days. And they're second bottom, I think they are, and they play
today, haven't they?
But they play decent-ish sort of football from what I remember from the first game. So when I think about Tuesday night against Accrington and Wimbledon, those sort of things,
I'm a bit
more hope. No, but I'm a bit more hopeful that we'll have a bit more opportunity to play our sort of decent brand of football, I guess you'd call it. So yeah.
And a point's no good to Rochdale, is it? Where they are, so they're going to have to come at us, and that always suits us. I agree with you.
Yeah, true enough. So, John, are we on player ratings or
player ratings? Yeah, player ratings.
Cool. Alrighty. So, who's going to kick off? Tim with Maxwell.
Maxwell,
yeah. I think he had a superb game today. He most certainly. John spoke about his handling. I thought his distribution was very good. He did drop one, which Ballard had to cover for, but that's always going to happen at some point in the game for me. I think he's really coming into his own, Chris, and he's a very, very important player. It's a 9 for me today. Superb performance.
Alrighty. Ollie Turton, Mitch.
I thought he played very well. There was the one moment against McGeady, but apart from that, he was very solid defensively. And as much as I mocked him a little bit at his attacking endeavour, he was there. He got forward. I don't know whether to give him an 8+ or a 9. He's at least an 8+. I'm going to give him an 8+.
Okay, cool. John, I was going to ask you if you wanted to get involved.
Yeah, I'd quite enjoy doing these.
I wanted to do Dan Ballard, but go on then.
Never get involved in doing these, so yeah, it's nice for me. Dan Ballard, 9. And he's my main contender for the man of the match. An absolute colossus at the back and playing beyond his 21 years. He's like a fully fledged, experienced 28-year-old full international. He is a full international centre back, but yeah, an absolute rock at the back and kept Charlie White quiet. So I'd be pushing for a 10 actually. In fact, sorry, I'm going to give him a 10.
I'd give him a 10.
I would. If it had been my choice, I'd have given him a 10. I think he actually deserves it.
Yeah, I think he needs to be played against all the top strikers in League One and just make them look like crap, because that's what he does every game. Done. Johnson, Clark, Harris, Charlie White, Verdane, whatever he's called at Gillingham. He's just so good, isn't he? He really is. So I would have given him a 10 as well. Right,
we'll just do man of the matches as well while we're doing this, because I'm concerned. We're on 1 hour 17, so that's my man of the match. So if anyone wants to pipe in for their man of the match, do it whenever.
Ballard for me as well. Ballard.
Me.
I think we're all Ballard, but
full house.
Yeah,
full house. Right,
okay.
Who have I got?
You've got
Gretterson.
The Viking. Oh, I missed it out.
Oh dear. Still got Dan Ballard name on the screen, John. Failed.
We've lost him.
Oh, he's gone. Oh well, never mind. Right, okay. So obviously the horns got him. So Gretterson was only a smidge behind Ballard for me. I thought until he got injured, I thought he was excellent again. I'd give him a 9 anyway. So, John, we lost you then.
I know it went off just as I pressed the sound effect. What did he get?
Anyway, he's got a 9 from me.
Right, okay. Garbett next.
Yeah, Garbett's me, I think. I thought he had a very, very good game defensively. Probably, obviously, he was heavily involved in the goal. I thought he was a bit wasteful with the limited number of set plays we had. But it's still a good performance. So it's an 8 from me.
Demi Mitchell next.
That's me, innit?
It is.
Demi, he didn't let anyone down. I tell you what we didn't mention was the first half. It was him ratting around the edge of the box that set up Jerry to set up Sims. I thought he was really committed. He didn't really have that much impact on the game, but he was buzzing around. And when I first saw Demi early on, I thought he's headless. He's got no self-discipline at all. And actually, he's really won me over. So I'm going to go. I'm 7+ or 8. 7+.
All right, John, you got Kenny.
So he had a funny one, didn't he? He picked quite a lot of pockets today, which I liked, and his distribution was a bit off. But yeah, he had a good solid game. He has played better, but I'll give him a 7+.
Okay, so I have
You've got Grant Ward.
Grant Ward. Yeah, similar, really. I think he just needs a little bit more help in there from the likes of Kai Embleton and Dimmy Mitchell, whoever's playing. So I'd give him a 7+ as well. Tim, Sully Kai.
Yeah, I quite like the way Sully played today in phases. He got stuck in a little bit more than he normally does. I think one of my criticisms of him is that he sometimes shies away from the fight, but I think he was always involved in the mix. I think you've been a bit harsh with the two central midfielders, to be honest. So I'm not going to let that drag my scoring down. I think when you're playing one of the best teams in the league, to give your central midfield 7/7s when they've won is a bit harsh. But I'll go 8. Criticism where criticism's due. We've just bloody won against Sunderland at home, and you're giving you 2 7/7s.
7+.
7+ on the fielding scale. It was a 7+. Don't forget.
Yeah.
The fielding, the international.
Anyway, Sully, you get an 8, even though you were no better than Ward or Dougal.
On the international fielding scoring scale.
Who we got next, John? That's going to get a 7+. Oh, Jerry Yates, Mitch.
Me, Jerry. Jerry 8. He was good. He didn't actually have any shots, did he? Really, or he had that one curling shot, but he was good.
He was quite.
He was all over the place. He was quiet, but he works his arse off every week. Clever link-up play. 8.
Yeah. So that must mean that you've got Ellis Sims, John.
It's a funny one. He was okay. 7. That's it.
That's fair enough.
I think that's fair. And the big thing I thought was today he fitted in. 3 weeks ago, he looked like a spare part sometimes. And today he was okay. He wasn't that good, but he fitted in. He didn't look out of place. And that's how Sims has come on in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think if he'd have took his chance early on, and like I mentioned earlier, I think you're probably expecting to at least hit the target, as we mentioned. But, it didn't quite happen for him today, did it really? Right, so we've done players, we've done man of the match, we've got Ballard, haven't we? Are we doing Critchley rating, John?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Tim, what are you giving the gaffer?
I think he picked the right team. I don't think there was any big decisions to be made over substitutions. To be fair, though, I think he made the right call with Thornley. So I think you've got to say it's an 8+ for me today. Not a 10. Not a 10 today.
The coach has just scored himself. Funnily enough, 10.
Modest.
It's 8+.
Mitch, what are your thoughts on him?
I think I'll echo what Tim said there. I can't think of anything else to say for once.
Fair enough. John, anything to add?
I'm going to give him a 9 because we've got the measure of all the top sides in this division, and although they've had a lot of possession, they never look threatening for any consistent period of the game. All right, they had a 10-minute spell, but I think he's done his homework on them. I think he's worked them out, and I think it's a bit of a masterclass today from Critchley. So I'm going to give him a 9.
Yeah, I'd go with it. I'd go with a 9 as well. I think what's important is our record against the teams who are obviously going to be up and around us come the playoffs, and he does seem to have, touch wood, a little bit of nous about him in terms of getting the results, whether we have 33% possession or better.
Yeah.
So
against all these top sides, in it, yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'll do that as well. We'll go for a 9. Right. So there we go, John. How are we up to?
That's it. We're done. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for your first presenting stint. How do you think he did, listeners? We should have a rate Matt session.
Phil's saying do a ref rating. I don't think it'd be very complimentary. We might end up on an FA charge, might we?
Does the fielding scoring scale have a negative option, Tim?
I want to give him a negative option, but it'd be a 3-. It'd be on my lowest score of the season.
Oh, brilliant!
Dear. Right, that's it then. Thanks for doing that, Matt. Thanks for jumping in. Yeah, you did a good job. Thanks for coming on, Matt/Mitch. Your input was Great as ever. As good as your blog.
My pleasure. I'm only going to answer for Mitch at home now. Just my name.
Yeah, don't call me Matt anymore, love, Mitch.
I forgot I was called Matt then.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for your hospitality today.
No problem.
And all that remains to be said is thanks for watching, thanks for downloading, and we'll speak to you all on the Match Reaction show on Tuesday after Oxford, Rochdale. Hopefully we're celebrating.
Oxford wood, apparently, by the way.
Said,
Bloody
Anyway, up the pool, everybody.
Up the pool.
Pools.